What should you do to prepare for your first Olympic weightlifting competition? How can you structure your training if you only have 30 minutes a day? And how much mobility work do you actually need to do? In episode 24 of the Last Set Best Set podcast, Coach Calvin and I dive deep answering these questions and more. And if you want your question answered on next week's episode, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. Welcome back to the Last Set Best Set podcast. I'm Coach Brian, I'm the owner of Big Ben Strength, and I've been teaching Olympic lifting for the last 11 years now.
And I am Coach Calvin, current captain of Lindenwood University's Olympic weightlifting program, as well as national university champion and a coach through Big Ben Strength.
And today we're going to be answering some questions that you guys submitted to us, starting with question number 1 here. I've signed up for my first weightlifting competition. Any tips? It was really timely, actually. Last weekend we took a team of 10 people to a competition, and for a lot of them it was their first one, so I've got a lot of thoughts on this. So we'll trade back on. We've got 5 main points that we want to cover here for people. And I'll let you go ahead and kick this off.
Yeah, and point number 1, before you go to a USA weightlifting meet, you're going to need somebody to help you there, a coach. Now, whether you have a coach or not, you're going to need someone there in person at the meet that is able to count your warm-up attempts and enter your numbers that you need on your cards. So basically declaring what weights you're taking, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
A lot of times this person will also load up your weights for you. Reach out to the gym that is hosting the meet if you don't have someone already, and ask them, hey, like, how much is it to get a competition handler? Do you guys have anybody that could help me out, like, on the day of the comp?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, every time that I've had an athlete who was going to a meet that I wasn't going to be able to go to, always just reach out to the gym. Most of the time, they're either going to have somebody there that can help, or they're going to know somebody there who may be able to help out. But having a coach or a handler for this, I don't know how anybody who is doing their first meet could do a competition successfully without one. Like, it is, I did for my first meet, did not have anybody there, and I was just trying to figure it out. And luckily, I was just the first person in the session, so I just had to be warm before the session started. Like, it wasn't too hard for me. But if you were a middle of the pack, later of the pack, and you're trying to figure this out on your own, it is tough to try and do this and do all your warm-up lifts and declare all your attempts and everything without getting way stressed out. So I definitely recommend a handler or a coach for sure. So the next one that I wanted to recommend here is practice your warm-ups and competition attempts. So what we'll do the week of the meet is the first Monday or Tuesday. If we're competing on Saturday, I have everybody work up to their competition openers at least. Usually just openers, maybe sometimes a second attempt on a snatch, but not so much on the clean and jerk. And I want you to practice not just hitting that competition attempt, but the warm-up that you're going to use, the build-up that you're going to use at the event. So a lot of the time you won't have access to the normal equipment that you have to warm up. You're probably just going to have a platform and a barbell to work with. So making sure that you know what your platform warm up is going to be that gets you generally ready, and then what your progressions are going to be. And this is super important for people who haven't done one before, how you need to know your warm-ups in kilos. Like, that is the biggest thing. If you're not used to using kilogram plates and you go and try and do that on the day of, it is going to be a nightmare to try and figure it out. So I highly recommend planning out what your warm-ups are going to be in kilograms and practice using them all the way up to your opening attempts, so that you can see if you like the jumps that you chose. Usually with some of my more advanced lifters, about 4 to 6 weeks out, we're planning those attempts and we're trying different warm-up strategies. We're trying to see which ones work the best for us. Should we make a 5 kilo jump up to a certain weight and then smaller jumps after that? Or can we make 10 kilo jumps up to a certain weight and then small jumps after that? I've got one lifter who absolutely loves just doing 60, 80, 100, and then he takes whatever his first attempt is going to be out on the platform. Like, that's very different than most other lifters. But taking the time to figure out what that's going to be works really well. You have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I actually, so you kind of mentioned like doing like one session on a Monday where you hit your openers and stuff. I would almost say even like through the weeks prior, be working on that warm up as well. And you probably do that as well too.
Yeah.
But yeah, making sure like you're getting in multiple sessions where you can make adjustments and changes to how you're approaching your competition warm up um, before you even step on the platform. So once you get into that competition, it's almost like automatic. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, especially like when I have lifters who have, especially they've been competing for, this isn't their first competition. We really toy around with the warm ups and the attempts that we're going to work with for like 6 weeks out. And then about 2 weeks out, then we'll have that really finalized and set. And we know exactly what we're going to do on the day of. At least up until that first. And then after that, who knows what we need to do? We'll play the board a little bit. Um, so yeah, if that's your first competition, I would highly recommend doing the same thing, especially if you have a long time to prepare for it. What is your next first competition tip?
So when you get to a competition, you might have to sit and rest for 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes in between your first and second attempt. So we want to practice in training, what we might do in that situation, or if you have to follow yourself, just 2 minutes in between your lift. We want to be kind of prepared for doing both those options with a weight that's opener or second attempt even.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so a good way to do this is uh, planning out, what you want to do. If you have 10 minutes, what's that lift you're going to do in the middle? Or maybe you're going to even do 2 lifts in between those in the back room to stay warm, to stay, snappy. Some people like to do a power. Some people like to do a full lift around the same weight. It's going to be individual. It's going to be what works best for you. That's why it's best to play around with it in those competition prep days leading into the meet to figure out what works best for you. Am I going to do a power snatch at 80% in between to stay warm and then go back out for my second attempt? You can figure that out. Another good strategy I like is just telling your training partner or friend, like, you tell me when to lift.
Yeah.
Like I don't like, don't let me decide like when I'm lifting. Like, you're gonna tell me, like, obviously don't do it like 30 seconds after I drop it or 20 minutes after, but like a meet, just tell me when I need to lift. And
I think that's a skill that way more people need to practice, and that was something that watching you guys especially watching you compete at universities, you were really great about. It's just you just sit there, headphones on, coach would point at you, go, and then you would get up, chalk up, lift, and it was just so routine, and there was no hesitation, there was no time in between. It's just you were ready whenever, and that's all it took. And if you can get really good at that, that's you can practice that in training, you're going to do great in competition, and your coach will love you for it. Um,
what's the next one?
yeah, my next one here is I think this is a little bit more specifically for first competition, but my goal with people at their first meet is to go 6 for 6. So I'm not a huge fan of trying to attempt for PRs or trying to go for medals or hitting qualifying totals at the first meet, because the first meet, the whole goal is just to get experience at the first competition. So I'm a huge fan just choosing conservative openers and conservative jumps so that you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to make all 6 of your lifts, so you get the full competition experience and you enjoy that. Now, if PRs happen in that range, then that's great. If medals happen in that range, that's great. If you hit your qualifying totals with your openers, that's awesome. But I would say, like, don't make your first meet the goal of hitting a qualifying total that would require 2, 3 PRs just to get it, because that is more than likely going to lead to a rough experience for your first time. So wouldn't recommend that. But what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, don't go into the meet trying to hit huge PRs or anything. Just get experience. A first meet is just for experience.
Yeah.
Like I even argue for a more experienced competitive weightlifter, a meet isn't for PRs. It's for whatever you're going there to do. And then, if it's there, you can PR as well. Or if you
Right.
need it to hit some sort of total or something. Like, the goal shouldn't really be to PR because, I mean, let's be honest, how many PRs are, we hitting in our lifetime? Not like a crazy amount. So if it's not your day, which is very possible, it's a day like just any other training day. And if it's not your day, you're going to be really disappointed if you didn't hit your PRs. A PR is a big day. A PR is like, should not happen very often, so you shouldn't expect it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, other than that, number 5, our last one. This is a pretty simple one. don't cut weight for your first ever meet. There's no reason to, unless
Amen.
you are a super good weightlifter who's just never competed for some reason before. Like you shouldn't be cutting weight. There's no reason to. The only valid reasons I have to cut weight, or I would see in someone to cut weight, trying to make an international team, trying to qualify for a really big competitive meet like AO finals or nationals week. Um, like those are the only real two options that I see as to why you should cut weight in a USA weightlifting meet.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. So, guys, if this is your first weightlifting competition, really, really take our advice on this. One, get a coach for the competition or a handler at least. Two, practice your warm ups and your competition attempts. Three, practice varied rest time so that you can be ready to go 2 minutes after your lift or 10 minutes after your lift, and what you're going to do in between. And then practice your rest time, and then make sure that your goal is to go 6 for 6 and hit all of your lifts and get good competition experience, not necessarily to medal, qualify total, or PR. And then 5, just don't cut weight. Like, it's just not necessary for you, unless this is a big deal competition that you're trying to qualify for, like nationals or something like that. So yeah, hopefully that is helpful for you guys. And if you need advice for your first competition, you guys can ask it in the Discord group that's linked down below, and we'll give you some tips for it as well.
Up next, we discuss how to structure your training if you only have 30 minutes a day. But first, I wanted to let you know about the OlyStrong team. The OlyStrong team is my online group coaching option for lifters who are looking to improve their technique, get strong, and build muscle. It includes your choice of 3 or 5 days a week of training, daily video feedback, and unlimited coach messaging to ask as many questions as you'd like for less than $1 a day. If you're ready to get started, click the link in the description below for a free week trial today.
Question number 2, if you only had 30 minutes a day to train for Olympic lifting, how would you structure your training? I kind of really like this because it was a little bit of an interesting challenge. 30 minutes, most people are going to say that is not enough time to get a full training session in. Most people are training hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes. But the reality is, like, if you've got a job and you got kids, you got a wife, you got parent, you got whatever, your family you're taking care of, you may only have 30 minutes and you could still make a lot of progress on that. So one way that I was kind of thinking about this was to use something, is to use these complexes where we're going to remove an exercise as the weight progresses so that you can get a more full workout while also not having to have too much change in the exercise that you're doing. So an example of that could be something like a snatch pull plus a hip snatch plus a snatch. And then as you progress in weight, that becomes snatch pull plus a snatch. And then as you progress in weight, then it just becomes a snatch pull where we're getting more of our strength work in. So it's an interesting way where we can get a lot of good technique work in, and then a little bit more focus on going a little bit heavier on the Olympic lifts, seeing how our ability to handle those movements holds up, and then progressing into the strength, and just in one smooth progression, you could easily do that and get a lot of sets done in 30 minutes. For the clean and jerk, another example that you could do is a front squat plus a push press plus a jerk, all this out of the rack. And then as you progress in weight, make that front squat plus a jerk, and you just drop the push press out. And then as you progress in weight, you drop the jerk and you push your front squats, and that gets your strength work in for the day. All in one fluid, easy way to do this. And I actually picked this up from kids. It was youthweightlifting.com back in like 2015 or 2016. I don't think it exists anymore, but it was a really great tip. And then the website just vanished. So there's good stuff there. What are some other things that you would think about if somebody who's only had 30 minutes a day?
Assuming somebody's at least able to make it in the gym 4 or 5 times a week, still, I think we're going to stick with just one Olympic lift, for instance, like the snatch. And you're going to, do maybe an EMOM, trying to get a lot of reps in, shorten those rest periods, and then going straight into, for instance, like snatch pulls directly after, no change in weight, or maybe adding weight, but not dropping down and warming back up. And then going straight into squats. Again, maybe not taking as full of a warm-up as you might if you had extra time. But yeah, like just racking the bar in the rack and then starting to do some squats at that snatch pull weight immediately after. Yeah, honestly, like you don't have a lot of options here. We're just going to be doing the main stuff. If you only have 2 or 3 days a week to train, honestly, just doing snatch and clean and jerk. Like maybe if you have 2 days, snatch one day, clean and jerk another day. You don't even have time to do both movements on each day, and then front squat one day, back squat the other day.
Yeah.
Boom. Like yeah, you're just going to have to really simplify it down, go in kind of order of what's the most priority, and then
Hmm.
just kind of what your workouts are going to look like. So obviously you have to be doing snatch and clean and jerk. Squats are the next priority. Pulls are next after that. Pressing movements probably after that. And then accessories after that. We probably just don't have any time to do accessory work really in this schedule.
Realistically, yeah, there's just no way, and that's okay because it's accessories. It's not the main priority, you know. So
Yeah.
that like when people are on the OlyStrong team and they're asking like how to modify it if they don't have enough time, I list everything in reverse order of most important. So the most important exercises go first, and then the least important exercises go last. So that if you don't have time, you just scrap one exercise after the other at the end of the workout to whatever time frame that you have realistically. That works for a lot of people. And then the biggest thing, if you're just trying to save time in the gym generally, the biggest time killers are rest time between sets and just getting lazy with your rest time. So anytime that I'm in a rush for my workout, I go in. First thing I do is I set a clock that's running, that's counting up. And then I am just constantly keeping an eye on that clock and I try and keep my rest times as consistent as possible. So I'm going to take very little rest, maybe 1 minute between Olympic lifts, and then maybe a minute and a half, or take a set every 2 minutes of for my strength work. Like that kind of stuff helps a lot. And then you also mentioned like EMOMs are also a good tool. So set a running clock. Every minute you take a set, or rest 1 minute exactly between sets. Can be a good way to get a lot of work done in a very little amount of time.
Absolutely. I love EMOMs.
Up next, we dive deep on how much mobility work you actually need. But first, a quick word from Calvin.
Hey guys, quick interruption to the video to tell you about my 12-week weightlifting program. This program is something I put a lot of time and effort into, so be sure to go check it out. The program takes you through a few weeks of volume, strength phase, and then finally ends off with a peaking phase, ending out the program. It comes with a demo video showing you how the program works, how to use it, as well as exercise videos for all the complexes that are used throughout the program. Be sure to go check it out down below, and let's get back into the video.
To question number 3, how do I structure mobility work into my program? This is a really great question. We haven't talked about mobility in kind of a long time, so we wanted to go a little deeper dive here. When it comes to mobility work, there's really 2 ways. First, that we need to assess. We need to know, can you get into the positions that you need to for the Olympic lifts, but it could be better? Or are you not able to get into the positions needed for the Olympic lifts? And those are 2 very different approaches to how we need to structure our mobility work. So let's just say that somebody like me, I have the ability to get into the positions that I need to for my snatch, for my clean and jerk, but they could just be a little bit better. My front rack position's not super great, but it could be a little bit better. How would you approach the mobility work for me?
First of all, kind of with either situation, we're gonna look at someone's warm up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, me, like I have pretty good front rack mobility. I have pretty decent overhead mobility when I'm warmed up. When I'm not warmed up, I do not. Like I
Yeah.
can't really get in the positions. Like it's just not gonna happen. So we need to be sure you're doing the proper warm up. So, taking every joint through its range of motion, making sure to elevate your heart rate for at least 5 or 10 minutes to get blood flow to everywhere. I actually have a platform warm up video on my YouTube. Just look up Calvin Lackey platform warm up
I'll link it up here.
for sure. And that could be a great place to start, as it'll be just some general preparation warm up for basically every joint in your body before you get lifting. Now, if you're still having trouble, right before you lift, if you need extra, we're going to address that kind of specifically with some real specific things. Like, for instance, Brian, maybe his front rack just isn't the best. Like, he can get it on there, but it just doesn't look great. We're going to throw in some underhand dead hangs, my favorite one for front rack, just before or during his clean warm up. Like there we go. Just kind of one little thing. It's not a huge case of like I have no mobility, but we're gonna have to throw in some little extra things to address his specific issues. What about situation number 2?
So if we're in situation number 2, which is that you cannot get into the positions that you need to for the Olympic lifts to get really much out of them or to be able to practice good technique, then we have to address it a little bit differently. We're going to be a little bit more purposeful, specifically with the mobility portion of this. So here's what I generally recommend for that. We're going to first start with some sort of soft tissue work or stretching that allows you to get into those positions a little bit better. So this is unloaded stretching, unweighted stuff. This is potentially, let's say that this is somebody who struggles with the overhead squat. We may take about 2 minutes and do some T-spine foam rolling or some anchored hand T-spine foam rolling. Really get that upper back position moving and kind of changing position a little bit and get it a little bit better so that we can then move into the next part, which is loaded stretching of some kind or strength-based stretching. So we might do an exercise like a SOTS press, like a behind the neck snatch grip press as a progression up to something that we're trying to build up to being able to do. So I'll start with T-spine foam rolling, 2 minutes. Then we'll move into empty barbell or even a trainer bar of some kind and do a SOTS press progression where we're trying to improve the strength, our ability to be in those positions with a little bit more weight. And you would be surprised just how much, just a little bit of extra focus on that really does make a big difference. And it could even be as simple as, like, I've got one kid who struggles with the overhead squat a little bit. All we do is T-spine foam roll, and then we get on a barbell and we do 3 sets of empty barbell overhead squats, about 5 reps. But every set we bring the grip in a little bit narrower and narrower until he's doing a slightly closed grip snatch grip for his overhead squats. And then we move into our snatches with his normal grip. Everything feels so much better.
Absolutely.
Super simple way to do it, but you get a ton of benefit out of it, and it's not all that hard to change in your warm up. You're just more focused on that specific thing. And then the last thing that you want to do really is after your Olympic lifts, right? We do all this just so that we can get into position to do the Olympic lifts. And then doing the Olympic lifts themselves are actually going to make your mobility better. Like you're going to be spending more time under tension at the bottom of a snatch or more time under tension with a barbell in the front rack position. So that is improving your front rack mobility. But if you can't do those positions first, we got to be able to open up that position so you can do it, then do a little bit of loaded stretching so you can do it better, then do your Olympic lifts so you're getting a lot of time under tension, and then we finish that up with some sort of stretching or more tissue work or more loaded stretching. One of those 3, whichever one works best for you. Personally, I think a lot of people might actually benefit more from just static stretching. If you're not doing that much, adding a little bit of static stretching can be a good way to get a little bit more comfortable in some of those deep ranges of motion.
Yeah,
so that's a good framework for you guys to try. Tissue work, then loaded stretch, then Olympic lift, then some sort of static stretch, or maybe even some more loaded stretching there. What are your thoughts there?
for sure. And then as far as like specific stretches that you're going to be doing during that, it can be really easy to just Google like overhead squat stretch. Or in fact, we do have a mobility manual. That's available on the website still for free, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, Mobility 101. Check it out. It's in the link in the description below. And we've got it grouped into 4 sections. So like if you struggle with front rack mobility, that's a quarter of the ebook. And then there's another section for overhead squat mobility. Then there's another section for squat depth. And then there's a section for jerk overhead mobility.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty straightforward. It's just which movement do you struggle with? Focus on those. And check out those exercises that are in there. There's a bunch of them. Really just stuff that I've found to be the most useful that you can start implementing pretty easily.
Up next, we shout out a few lifters who are killing it in training. But first, I wanted to let you know about the Welcome to Hell training program. This program is one of the toughest but most successful programs we've ever run. It first takes you through a volume phase where you'll be able to sharpen your technique on the Olympic lifts. Then into a strength phase where we'll get your legs and back feeling strong before we go into a peaking phase where we retest our maxes for the snatch and clean and jerk. On average, lifters add 11 pounds to their snatch and 17 pounds to their clean and jerk. So if that sounds good to you, then make sure to grab your copy at the link in the description below. All right, back to the show.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get into the shout out portion of this podcast where we shout out a few lifters that you need to know about. These are people that are hitting great lifts, doing something pretty cool in their training, or just generally good lifters that we wish you could follow. So the first lifter that I wanted to shout out 21 sets later, Anthony hit this 300-pound clean and jerk PR. So one of the guys on the OlyStrong team, he's been making some pretty crazy progress, and I was actually going to shout him out already for the lifts that he hit this past week. But then yesterday he sent me this 300-pound clean and jerk PR, and I was just so crazy impressed because we weren't actually supposed to PR on this day. But he said, like I always say, if the iron is hot, strike. So on our highest volume day, 21 sets of snatches and clean and jerks. On his last attempt, he decides to go up for a PR, and he closes the gap on that 300-pound clean and jerk. But 2 weeks ago, or 1 week ago, he had already hit a 10-pound clean and jerk PR at 295. So if you're keeping track of that, in 2 weeks, I think this guy's added 15 pounds to his clean and jerk. And then I believe that he's matched his PR snatch, so he's added 15 pounds to his total. So I am just crazy impressed with Anthony, and this guy is also just an absolute menace in our Discord group too. Like he posts memes in there all the time, and he's just putting up great lifts all the time. So definitely go give Ant a follow for sure.
All right, so lifter number 2 that I want to shout out. How many high schoolers do you know that can clean and jerk 370 pounds, 168 kilos? I can think of maybe 2, 3.
Yeah, same.
This is an insane lift. Malik, who is from the Villages High School in Florida, hits this absolutely monster clean and jerk. One of the biggest things about this is just the ease and the speed that clean has. Clearly, he's got a ton more in the tank on that clean. I bet he could clean 380, perhaps even 390 or 400 pounds if he really wanted to.
Yeah, that clean looks so good.
Absolutely. Malik's committed to lifting with the team here at Lindenwood next year, and I can't wait to see the kind of progress he gets to show lifting under our system and our coaches here. I think it's going to be really good for him, and I'm sure we'll see him break into that 400-pound barrier in the clean and jerk. It'll be really cool.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, so the third lifter that I wanted to shout out, Logan Billick, a high school weightlifter who is snatching 55 pounds over his body weight. So Logan sent me this video of his 180-pound snatch that he hit in a high school weightlifting meet while he was weighing 125 pounds. And I was just so impressed by this because I think, honestly, a lot of the time, lighter weight class lifters don't get the appreciation that they deserve because their training is, I think, objectively harder than it is for the rest of us. It is just harder to make progress. Like, for them to take a 5-pound PR versus somebody who's in 3-4 weight classes heavier is significantly harder for them. Like, I did the math on it. It was like a 5-pound PR for a lighter weight class lifter is like a 5% increase. Whereas a 5-pound PR for a heavier weight class lifter is like a 2% increase. So when they're, they only can make 5-pound PRs at these high school meets, it is ridiculous to me how strong these guys are getting. And I'm really excited to see what he's going to be able to put up at regionals and states over the next couple of weeks for sure. So definitely make sure you give this guy a follow and stay tuned to see what he hits.
All right, lifter number 4. If you haven't heard of him already, it's Connor Matthews with a 132 kilo, 290 pound snatch. I'm super impressed whenever I see a football player cleaning, near 300 pounds. But Connor is here nearly snatching that. He took his third attempt at 300 pounds, but he finished with 290. This actually broke their meet invitational record by 65 pounds. So
oh my God.
Before this, it was 225. Now it's 290. And he's going to play football at the Air Force Academy. He's definitely one of the strongest high school football players I've ever seen. And I think if we saw a lot more football players like him get into Olympic lifting, not only is it going to help him get better at football, of course, but we'd see some really cool results on the, snatch and clean and jerk, and maybe some more records broken.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think last year, if I remember correctly, he was real close to getting a Team USA spot on, I think, his second USA weightlifting meet ever. So definitely give Connor a follow if you aren't already, for sure. All right, guys, that's everything for this week's episode. Calvin, where can people find you?
People can find me at Calvin Lackey 81kg on everything.
And you guys can find me at Big Ben Strength on everything. We'll catch you guys next week. Bye.
See ya.